Hey, welcome to episode 2 of Unlocking Potential's Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. I am your host, co-founder and president of IoT Media and Entertainment, and boy, oh boy, do we have a banger for you. Ray Edwards, co-founder, CEO of PURTEC, an advanced purification, cybernetic purification platform out in Vegas, doing some incredible things with some really substantial organizations throughout the country in cleaning air quality spaces using sensors and a device that he has developed to do this. Ray talks about his past, he talks about his present, ultimately his future. He talks about some of the struggles along the way. So I highly recommend, if you're an entrepreneur, that this is a great episode for you to watch, learn, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks for showing up.
All right, I'm closing my door. The Robo's doing its thing. Cool.
Robo's doing its thing. Well, I shoved the kids and the wife into the bedroom tonight, and I was like, "You are not allowed out, no matter what. I don't care unless there's a fire. You gotta stay in the room. Somebody loses a finger, stay in the room."
Exactly. My 2-year-old's not here, so we're good to go. It's too loud, so I'm gonna turn it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tech guy's trying to do tech things. It's good.
Cool.
All right, man. So we're recording now. So listen, Ray, thank you so much, man, for spending some time with me. I know after hours out there in Vegas at the office, you've got the legit setup. You've got the Yeti mic now. Congratulations. Welcome to the Fancy Mic family.
Imagine that. I'm a content guy now.
Exactly. Who knew? So take a second, introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the rest of the stuff here in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just that guy down the hall who hangs out in garages and tinkers, otherwise known as Ray, founder of PureTec. Super excited to be hanging out with you, man. I
appreciate it, man. Oh, and I forgot. So it's gotten hot here in PA, and so I didn't want to wear this because I'd be sweating, but I brought the swag. Yeah, it's right here, man. Wait,
awesome. We're gonna do update to the rose gold, our new colors.
What is going? This is very hard to do if nobody's ever. There we go. I've not even had anything to drink yet, so this is crazy. But I told you I'd bring it, so I brought it, and then obviously representing TrueFit here. But yeah, man, thank you so much for taking some time. What are you drinking tonight?
Oh man,
what'd you bring with you?
I'm a total snooze fest workaholic, so I kind of stuck with the San Pellegrino today.
What flavor though?
This is I can't even pronounce it. That's how good it is. I mean,
please try.
Arancia Fico de India.
That was perfect, man.
Orange and prickly pears.
Who knew? You were fluent in whatever that is.
Whatever that language is. Tastes pretty darn good though.
That's awesome, man. I enjoy their orange or their tangerine one that they have. I've had that a handful of times, but I always feel like I blow up, man. It's like soda without the caffeine, right?
Yeah, I get through half a can before I tweak a little bit. So hey.
That's awesome, man.
It's wonderful.
Awesome.
It can long sprints and long days, so it's my go-to. It's my happy spot.
Nice and refreshing, and put you in that happy spot.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I'm down in some Cinderlands tonight. So this is a Pittsburgh brewery.
Cool.
They've got a couple of locations. The next time, have you been to Cinderlands?
I haven't. That's cool packaging, by the way. That's a far cry from my dad's Iron City beer can growing up.
But yeah, next time you're in Pittsburgh, we'll have to check these guys out. So, and look at that color.
Oh man, that's
my Star Wars glass. That's a little hazy
too. Yeah,
little hazy IPA. Awesome, man. Well, Ray, so I know you've got a lot of really cool stuff going on right now. I know you're doing some amazing things in the advanced purification space. So let's kind of frame this like this. Give the listeners an overview what PureTec is, and then what I want to do is kind of walk backwards and start all the way back at the beginning, because you're from here in the Pittsburgh area, right? Like, was it Squirrel Hill or?
Oh no, that's the other side of the track, man. Stop it. You're flattering me now. Now you're flattering me.
I do what I can.
No, I'm from the other side of the tracks, and from an area of Pittsburgh called Homewood Brushland when I was growing up. And very proudly so, Westinghouse graduate. And so now I'm based in Vegas, and I'm a long way from home, as we say.
You are.
I'm super proud to be back from Pittsburgh. Yeah, I'm a Steelers fan for life.
Yeah, there we go. We gotta tweak your office out a little bit though, and get some black and gold. There's too much black and white.
I know.
It's almost like Raiders colors or something.
Yeah,
You know?
and I'm an obnoxious Steelers fan. So if I go crazy in here, it'll look like a man cave really fast.
That's awesome. Well, we'll have to get you some gear out there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I've got a flag on the house, so that's about
okay. Okay, good deal. So what is PURTEC and what is Purinetic?
Yeah, so PureTech was my answer to an age-old problem that all of us could appreciate, and this is pre-pandemic, but we all live in these indoor environments 92% of our lives now with the pandemic. And so, I'd always fantasized about bringing intelligence and technology into a space that was really archaic, finding a very high-tech way to solve for an antiquated microbial issue indoors. And so Purinetic is the company, PureTech's first product line that virtualized the indoor experience. What I mean by that is bringing intelligence into being able to determine how well a space is indoors and how health positive it is. And if there is a space that we're living in that isn't health positive, having a responsive technology that can think so we don't have to automatically respond to that and create a net pure environment. So Purinetic is basically a purification network with an IQ, IoT enabled purification.
That sounds insanely complicated, albeit very needed and welcomed in the state of the world today. So let me ask you then, like, where did this idea come from? How did this start? How did this come to be?
Started in locker rooms. I spent most of my career in entertainment, sports, and media. And by virtue of my travels, I've worked with and around a lot of athletes. I've been inside of locker rooms in 13 NFL teams, over 22 D1 schools, football programs. And I've met over 1,000 athletes in my career, in my travels, from all walks of entertainment and sports. And the more that I talked to these players and these teams and facilities managers about how they were managing the players' health and wellness indoors, I kept finding that there was a gap in the market where they were all using things that you push with a broom or push around or wipe and spray to deal with microbe issues and still not getting the job done. And so that birthed the challenge. Like, my mind started turning over. And prior to this company, I actually launched another venture with some other co-founders I was working with then to develop another product that would deal with putting, gear inside of a product, inside of a bag product, to deal with getting funk out of that gear. And so the natural evolution to PureTech was to go from being an expert in how to purify gear to helping protect people in spaces and bringing in advanced innovation and layering that into that process. And so this has been a labor of love for me. I'm a self-proclaimed germaphobe. I'm the guy who's like, if you sneeze in my car, I'm opening all 4 windows in the wintertime in Pittsburgh. I was that guy, So now that we're all germaphobes, it really has helped with our path to market to finding a relevant audience for what I believe was a simple solution for a complicated problem. And that's using oxygen, air, and sound to purify things that are in our atmospheres. So that was our evolution.
Yeah, and I mean that's wild. Like, how did you even get to the point of knowing what to use to eliminate the microbials? Like incorporating the oxygen and the ultrasonic and the UV. Like, walk me through that process and what that was like.
Yeah, I started with oxygen first. I've always been passionate about, clinically what's been not largely marketed, but what's been proven by the scientific community with respect to what oxygen can do both in the body and in our environments to create net positive health environments. And and the idea of oxidation and what you can do if you can control and harness the power of oxygen inside of environments where there are pathogenic disease-causing microbes that are anaerobic, typically. And so there's a doctor right here in our backyard in Reno, that Dr. Frank Schallenberger, who's a very well-known practitioner with ozone and with oxygen therapies, that inside of scientific communities have embraced this philosophy that he uses of what you can do to cure ailments in the body and terminal diseases and things like stage 4 cancer, diabetes, all types of things in the body by administering safe levels of O3 inside the bloodstream. And so I started studying his work and the work of others like him in 2011 and quickly happed upon this entire body of research that was showing that if you can control oxygen levels in our environments and in the body, you can almost neutralize most of the things that cause human health issues that are known to us today. And so the natural evolution for me was to find a way to bring in smart technology that could create environments where you can harness that oxygen and control that and make the environments that we live in safer by virtue of the same process. And that's been a labor of love for me for 12 years now as I've studied the space.
My goodness, man, 12 years. It almost seems like with this last year, like an eternity, right?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Last year was like the never ending year. And then when you start putting like long-term numbers on things now, it's like, God, like we were babies.
Yeah. And some of you mathematicians are going to do the math and say, well, 2011 is not 12 years, it's 10, right? There was 2 years of run up where I was literally I wasn't doing hardcore research, but I was talking to a lot of athletes and players about like why they were using hyperbaric chambers and why they sleep in those and what that does in the body from a training and physical performance standpoint. Yeah. So for me, yeah, it really has been something. And I was a nerd in high school, man. I was the kid that would get beat up behind the lockers because I was a Geek Squad guy, right? It's probably been more like 39 years of wanting to do stuff like this, and work on technologies. But yeah, it's been exciting as we embark on the next phase of our evolution to identify the things that we can solve for using simple things that are already in our environments.
Yeah. Dude, that's wild. So answer me this. How does a guy from Homewood end up working on an advanced purification system on the other side of the country?
Yeah, man. That's a complicated and very nuanced story. But I actually felt, so we work backwards from me being in the tech space for the last 15 years now. Prior to that, I was in the music business. And I'd always growing up was a music guy. I was in the band and I loved performing music. I love listening to it. I like producing. I liked all the things that came with the music industry, but I also like eating 3 meals a day. And I realized that there were other skills that I had in business that would help me to sort of make a living while I pursued my passions. And so, starting out as a kid in Homewood, sports and music were the currency of the community, if you would. I mean, everyone in my community connected through the football team, through high school band, or some level of culture around the school and the community, right? And so I was very fortunate that I grew up with a mom who was very adamant about education being the pathway out of a difficult environment. And so she had always impressed upon me the importance of focusing first on hitting the books and getting good grades and getting into college and all the things that our parents teach us in school. But at the same time, pursuing the things that I was curious about, right? And so curiosity was really encouraged in my home. And I think that was kind of like the impetus for me to search out things and ideas that would lead to innovation and entrepreneurialism. So I've been one that I'm very fortunate to have had a great corporate career up to that point. But having enough confidence in that sort of upbringing and education to believe that I could step out into the unknown, take an idea and turn that into an enterprise. And that's sort of been my journey to this point.
Man, that's awesome. We've got a few entrepreneurs that are going to end up being in this pilot series of the Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. And it's interesting, man, the what it takes internally and the things that have happened in your past that culminate into kind of that idea starter. I know we're in this day and age now where it's like be an entrepreneur, right? Like that's hailed and that's praised. But for someone to truly take those steps and to become an entrepreneur and not just like think about it and talk about it, but to do it, like all the challenges that come along with it, all of the unknowns and the risks that you have taken personally to build this thing, right? Like it takes a certain aptitude. It takes a certain type of person. Walk me through like the early days, right? Mm-hmm. The early days, like what was going through your mind? Like what were some of those key indicators that you saw as you were kind of like taking those steps of, you know what, I think I want to leave the corporate world. I want to leave the stable income and I want to leave the stability of like the 9 to 5. And I'm going to go and I'm going to just create this thing from nothing.
Yeah. So, and that's a great point. I think back to my career at the beginning. I came out of undergrad, went to Duquesne in Pittsburgh, and ultimately rolled right into the Big Four. I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers out of undergrad, flipped over to Ernst & Young, where I was working on these jobs and doing assurance work, and ultimately got into M&A and transaction work for these really big media companies. Like Time Warner was a big client.
Yeah.
And so, going from Time Warner at EMY, moving into Warner Music Group, into these big $3 billion, $4 billion machines. I was excited about being surrounded by the smartest people in the world. And I was in New York City then. So I was really surrounded by a lot of folks that were just genius level, Mensa level business people and finance folks, right? But there was always this emptiness in my soul when the lights went out at 9 o'clock at night and I'm working on, annual releases and 10Ks and 10Qs and financial reports and all that stuff, right? And I'd look up and it'd be 10 and I realized I did a ton of work that day, but I hadn't made any mark in the world from what I did that I could measure back to real people's lives, right?
Right.
And so that was the beginning of me looking at and studying business from the inside and saying, what every business that has been successful that we know about, every logo, TrueFit, Time Warner, PureTec, these were all ideas in someone's head at some point. And generally, these ideas start with there's a problem that people are dealing with in the marketplace, and there's a better way to solve for it. And I always believed that if I had enough time to just stop working and think and give myself the space to be creative, I could probably solve for some of the problems that were most annoying to me. And so working in the space that we're in here at PureTec in germs, as I call it, was something that was like really easy for me to dive into. So what wasn't easy was giving up the paycheck, right?
Yeah.
But I began studying the work of writers like Robert Kiyosaki. He's got a great book. It's called Cashflow Quadrants. And when I read that book, it unpacked me in a way that I understood how I was wired and why I was so frustrated working 80 hours a week in a finance gig on a solution that I didn't build and couldn't really define where my mark was in that solution, to building something in the world that I could trace my own innovation back to and build an enterprise and profit from that exercise and helping people, right? And so that was my journey. Was probably right around in 2006, I started getting the initial bug to start something. So I formed my first company, and that was only an artist management company. It was my way of tinkering the music business with something non-finance related.
Right.
And I did okay in music management, but ultimately realized that even in that, I wanted to build something I could own that I could scale, right? Yeah. And so it took me another 7 years to get to full entrepreneurship. I was CFOing at that time. So a lot of my day gigs I was making good money as a CFO, raising capital for other tech startups. But then I realized, okay, I've got enough skills here on how to build this thing that I could launch something. And so team was my last year on the W-2.
My goodness, man. So it was, overall, start to finish, that process of truly becoming an entrepreneur was 7+ years. Yeah,
I'd say 7 years of, leaving my last corporate gig where I was on payroll was 2013, really. And I took all my savings and plowed it into the first company I launched, which is really just an innovation house, a lab, where we come up with ideas and figure out what we build and try to take it to market and keep the plane in the air, as we call it.
Yeah.
And that one failed ultimately because I didn't know how to build teams and I didn't really bring in resources and didn't have enough capital to keep that going. So I went back to consulting, built the capital base again, and that launched the bag company with 3 of my other partners. Went through a couple of years of that, raised some capital, launched a product, got excitement, but realized it needed much more capital to grow it. So parked that, and that company still exists today, but parked that and realized that I had a solution that instinctively I knew if I could figure out this environmental purification thing, bring an IoT perspective into it, and virtualize that using software intelligence, then I could probably meet a market gap that was largely underserved. And so for me, the risk was built into the fact that I knew I could build this, get it to market, and I was being told enough that people would use it or found it exciting that I could monetize it. So
Man, I just personally, for me, and by virtue of the circles that I run in, get to hear a lot of the entrepreneurial stories, and every single one of them is unique and every single one of them is interesting because there is something that has to click inside of you, right? Like to make that decision, to make that switch. And sometimes it to your term, like it germinates, right? It takes some time to kind of cultivate and to build upon, and you take those experiences and things. And it's just fascinating to me, kind of that journey of, I don't know, I get jazzed up about it, man. I love hearing these stories, and I think that there's a lot for people that are on maybe the edge of, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. I've got some ideas. I don't really know what to do. We're in this day and age where we feel like everything needs to happen right now and everything that needs to happen quick. and I've got an idea and I want to go and do it. And if it doesn't work, then I stop. Right. But it takes time. And I think that's kind of if you pile them all up, if you pile everybody's experiences up in the entrepreneurial system, I'd say everybody, but by and large, it takes time. It takes experience in going through those things to really come out on the other end of it with a successful product or a successful launch. Like, you have to take your failures, you have to get your stripes, your lashes, like you got to go through hell basically to come out on the other side. And, that trial by fire, like, it's a real thing.
Yeah. In fact, you're touching on an area that is close to my heart, and I can remember the trial by fire getting PURTEC off the ground, because there was a period where I went through a bout of homelessness building this company. And a lot of people that know
man,
they don't know that. Yeah, a lot of people don't. I don't share that a lot publicly. This is probably the first time that publicly I've mentioned that I went through.
And this is going to be public. So.
Yeah, so, hey, there you go, guys. This was not easy. So sign the order to get it. But yeah, there was a point when the money ran out.
Yeah.
And I had more vision than I had money. And I had to make a decision. Would I go back? This is 18, 19 months ago. So we had already met by then. But
yeah,
I had to make a decision. The prior company, it ran out of money. The team that was in that company were always available to support it, but just we're in a standstill until we get more capital. And I could have gone out and tried to secure a big investor and to believe in the vision, but I never believed in using VC capital to build a business. I've always believed that you use that to accelerate your current traction, your growth.
Yeah.
And so, I see a lot of founders, and if you're listening to this and you are a founder and you need capital, there are a lot of ways to capitalize your business, and VCs are not always the easiest and probably not the best starting point. And if you're listening to this and you're in a place where you're looking at the decision to stop your business and go do something else, or continue on, call me, write me, text me. There are so many ways and resources to get cash through your business legitimately that will help. So you don't have to go through that. But I got to a point where I had to choose between going back to the world that I knew and was familiar with, which was CFOing in tech companies as a consultant, or continuing on with the vision for PureTech, which had already been birthed. And I chose to climb in the back of my Jeep Commander in Orange County, which is not the hardest place to live, by the way. And, for 9 months, I'd spend days in the library. I'd shower at the gym. I'd take meetings, pitch the technology, recruit founders, do all that during the day for 9, 10, 12 hours a day. And I'd go back into the Commander and sleep in the library parking lot until the next morning, right? And live on $7 a day. That was how I got through 9 months of building this, right? And my family didn't know, my friends didn't know. There's only one person who knew, and it's my co-founder, Farai. He was there through that whole period, and he believed in the vision enough where he got evicted from his apartment. He lost his car and went back to his parents' basement for that 9 months while we got this thing off the ground, right?
Wow.
But what pulled me through that was I always knew that if I could just get it built, right? If I could just take the idea from a piece of paper to a prototype and get the prototype in someone's hands who gave a crap, we would actually win business and we'd get out of the hole we were in. And the Rams in the NFL were the first team to open their doors to us, look at our prototype, and open up an opportunity to work with them. And so they bought all the prototypes from us on the beginning, right? And that was really exciting. And that got us out of the hole, basically.
My God, man, what a story.
It's true. It's a true one, man. So
it's insane, and it's who you are today, and it's a testament to who you are, right? And the fortitude of being like, listen, I've got this idea. This is a real thing. I believe in it. My co-founder believes in it, and we're gonna do whatever it takes, right? That whatever it takes attitude to make this become a reality.
Yeah, I think we get caught up in the Hollywood version of the social networks, where you come up with an idea in your dorm room and you look up and you have 20 million users and you've got VCs screaming at you, right? I'm not Aaron Sorkin. That's not a story that I would write, The reality is you're going to go through, I love the crossing the chasm model that Jeffrey Moore paints so vividly, where startups go through the valley of death. Even if you launch a product and it seems to work and you have some traction, you still go through this period where you got to go from MVP innovators to early majority adoption. And most startups fell in that chasm, right?
Yeah.
That's where you lose, where you burn out, where you go BK, you do down rounds. I see it a lot, right?
Right.
And what pulls you through that is you have to just have a strong vision for what you're building, and just know that if you can get it made and get it in front of people, somehow, some way, the resources will show up to get it through the chasm. And I think that America is probably the best country for helping entrepreneurs get across that chasm.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. So, and this is great, man, because this is a great segue. I mean, into where you were 18 months ago, right? 2 years ago or whatever it was. Like, talk us through where you are now. So you had an idea, you were living in the back of your Commander, and where are you now? Where's the product now? You mentioned the Rams. Like, walk us through where PURTEC is today.
Yeah, sure. So we've expanded, obviously, in a couple areas. One would be, and working with you guys has been instrumental in this.
Us is TrueFit, just so that everybody knows. It's TrueFit.
The best outsourced software development shop in the
US based in the world. Yes, absolutely.
Super.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I know we don't have visuals here or B-roll, but we're now launching our 2.0 product. We've gotten out of prototypes, obviously. So now what was once a device that customers were buying, we've now become a network. And so our customers subscribe to a network of devices deployed across their entire facility, and they subscribe to our purification platform. And whether you're an office building, a public school, a sports team, hotel franchise, now you can virtualize your entire facility with a technology and a network that will grade your facility from a health and wellness standpoint and automatically bring in that UV and oxygen we talked about to purify that, to make that a healthy environment. And what we love about the tech today is a lot of our customers are complaining that they're spraying things in their facility and it's discoloring surfaces or it's leaving toxic chemicals to leave behind. And we come in and say, we have a completely renewable, clean purification network that if you just let it sit and do its job, it's already thinking, it's responsive, and it's purifying and virtualizing that experience. And it's all done remotely. You don't have to be in the space. So I'm happy to report that what was once one team in the NFL on a beta pilot program has now become 22 D1 schools that are embracing us and deploying us in their football operations and facilities. We already signed on Howard Hughes, I can mention. So Howard Hughes corporate headquarters here in Vegas are now on our platform.
Nice.
We're excited about, and they also own the Aviators, so we may get an opportunity to work with the Aviators in their facility. We have already danced with a public school that is really excited about putting this in a third of the school district in the Midwest. Can't mention them yet, but we're working on that deal now. And we even have a touring company that you introduced us to that does IT for Live Nation, for C3 festivals. They did the NFL draft, that are also beta piloting our new technology so that we can help make those performance venues and those green rooms for celebrities safer as they travel through those facilities. And so we'll close this year at about 1.5 million square foot of network coverage. And that's all been onboarded and stuff that we've sold just this fiscal year alone. So we're growing in leaps and bounds. Our team is understaffed and we're recruiting like crazy, and actually finishing another round of financing to help with the growth through this next inflection point as well. So,
as you said, get the financing to accelerate, not to build the business, right?
Acceleration, man. And that's acceleration, because you want to make sure that your terms and your financings are founder friendly, but also respectable to your investors, right? Yeah. And traction is the delta, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. So you went from no product to product. Now you've got some really impressive players and having some really incredible conversations, and really the sky's the limit. What is the future of the product? Where are you seeing really PURTEC kind of go? And it's all IoT based. So for those that don't know, I mean, maybe take a minute and like describe. Do you have one? I think I see it behind you.
Oh yeah,
that's you want to show. Like let's talk about the actual product. And this is prototype, right?
This is our alpha unit. Yeah. So what our alpha unit's doing in my office is thinking. When I walk out of here after we finish this broadcast and I go get another San Pellegrino, it's going to know that I left the office, and it's going to purify the space. And the reason it knows is because it's reading for environmental conditions. So right now it knows that because I'm in the room, there's spikes in temp and humidity, some other factors, right? It's picking up on all those things. It knows the body chemistry that I'm carrying. It knows if I'm wearing fragrances. If I was a smoker and I smoked in this office, it would know all those things. And it's processing that data into an algorithm. And when I walk out, it's going to know, okay, I've been out of the room for an hour, 2 hours. If I'm not on my scheduled time, I have it set scheduled to purify this office because I have meetings here. So I want to make sure when I come in the next day, if anything has been aerosolized, it's neutralized and immobilized, right?
Yeah.
So it's thinking and it's looking for environmental conditions and sending me a pure score, right? And that pure score is algorithmically telling me if there's a net neutral on the environment that I'm in and if I should react to that with the technology. So our Alpha unit actually was the first device that we made that brought in sensor capabilities, brought in machine learning intelligence, and use that as a way to reactively purify spaces using organic renewable sources. The new technology that's releasing here on 2 weeks does the same thing, but it has more smarts, more analytics built into it, and it's all user controlled through app mobility. So where I have to do all that stuff on the device screen in this unit in my office, and the beta 2.0, you can program everything across the cloud network through your cloud infrastructure. So I can be on the beach in Bermuda and still understand what's happening in my office because I'm connected to a cloud connectivity point.
Nice, man. So like the ultimate germaphobes, they're going to know where the germs are no matter where in the globe they are. They're going to know what's going on in their office, right?
Yeah, well, this version, and that's our evolution. We're not yet in germ mapping yet. We don't do any kind of classification of microbes, but from an environmental standpoint, there are key consistent markers that if they're in that space lead to the encouragement of things that could be problematic for you. And so today we can pick those up. As we work along our innovation curve, the next holy evolution is to start to characterize what's in your space using other technologies that are off the shelf that will help us bring in more analysis into the devices in the network. Yeah.
It just blows my mind, man. I mean, like here we are 16 months into a global pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, I mean, people would think about this stuff, but it wasn't like top of mind. And I feel like the last 16 months has really just made all of us in some way, shape, or form germophobic, right? I'm walking in the store, if somebody coughs or sneezes, I'm paying attention to that. Whereas before, 2 years ago, they were coughing and sneezing and I'd never even think about it, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got something that's kind of breaking into and allowing folks to have some sort of a peace of mind in a space, knowing that overnight or whenever it is, when that room or that space isn't occupied, that it's getting the appropriate level of cleaning, sin toxic chemicals. You're saving on organizations, the cost of maybe having somebody come in and manually clean those spaces every so often. It's a deeper clean, right? Am I correct in saying that it's a more complete cleanse?
Yeah, that's a great nomenclature and a great way to characterize what we do. We're the final mile between purification and cleanliness. Certainly, if you spill things on a surface or if someone was to make a mess in a facility, we can't clean up messes. That requires mops and brooms and all that good stuff, right? But there's a difference between sterilization, sanitization, and cleaning, right? Sterilization is the idea of immobilizing things that are problematic in a space, and you may take them out of the space using wipes or not, but you're immobilizing them. Sanitization is the immobilization part of the microbes, but also getting them out of the space. That's where you have reverse pressure rooms in the hospital environment and places where you don't want to have particulate matter. Then cleaning is actually you doing what you're supposed to do, taking the alcohol-based stuff through your facility and getting it out of the space. And you nailed it. We are that gap of efficiency or inefficiency. We close the gap between the sanitization and cleaning process. And what most of our customers, when they subscribe, are telling us is they're using these electrostatic sprayers, Clorox, Lysol, bleaches to wipe things, but even they're not able to consistently use those products in ways that are recommended by the manufacturer to get to a net sanitary environment. So, for example, in the classroom environment, teachers now have to be mini epidemiologists and wipe surfaces after every class. But the recommendation for most topical solutions is you spray it, you leave it for 30 seconds so it immobilizes things, you wipe it, and you let it dry before you put things on the surface. And I can guarantee you, if you talk to any teacher,
that ain't happening.
Ain't happening. Right? According to the CDC, only 34% of surfaces are being properly sanitized that are being used daily. Right. And so you have things called fomites in the scientific community, which is like your door handles and your keyboards for your peripherals for computer, your mice, your TV remotes in a hotel room, right? Which is a classic scary gram, right? Those things are not being consistently sanitized and sterilized. And so when you bring Purinetic to an environment, we're getting coverage with anything that's visible, but also things that you can't easily get to with the UV light using the UV, right? And so total cost of ownership of Purinetic becomes justified when you map that to what you have to do to get to 100% coverage in environments where today you get only 34 with additional custodians and cleaning people and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we become a very relatively inexpensive option when we're an offset to your P&L for things you have to do to stay safe. That's the idea.
Yeah. And where are you guys seeing the most traction right now? Like, where are you having the majority of the conversations? Because I mean, there's lots of spaces that need to be cleaned.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I'm in a house. I've got 2 young kids, and I feel like if I could have something going 24/7, that would be preferable. But where are you guys seeing a majority of the traction in those conversations for PureTech?
Yeah, sure. Most of my customers now are sports programs, and that's mainly because 2 things. One is that they have a real dire need to get back into facilities to be competitive. If you're a football program in a D1 school, your players need to work out. They need to train, right? They've got to have team meetings, their strategy meetings. It's very difficult to virtualize the sports performance experience entirely. And so one of the reasons we got the original opportunity with the Rams was they wanted to get that facility reopened and be able to use the weight room again, right? So we were to help them do that last year. The second thing is that they're also able to empty that facility and control it in ways that are really easy. So we know that in a sports locker room from midnight to 6 a.m., that locker room's empty. And that gives us ample time to really optimize both detection and purification. And when I say detection, we're not just looking for the scary things in the space, but we also can tell users if spaces have been properly cleaned based off of our sensor readings.
How do you do that?
Well, every one of these topical cleaners that we use have chemicals and byproducts that are consistent with most of them. And most are aerosolized or some form of a spray. So our units placed inside of a room will detect for whether or not that surface or that room has been covered with these topical sprays or not, right? And so we either see it light up at night, meaning that custodial staff hit that space where our network is deployed, or we don't see it. And so what is customarily thought of as a problematic leave behind becomes a good thing from 12 to 6 a.m., really not a good thing from 6 to 10 a.m. when people are coming back in this space. So we do 2 things. We tell you when to have your spaces with these markers and when they shouldn't be. So while your HVAC is off from midnight to 6 a.m. and you're cleaning things, we'd say windows should be open and HVAC should be pulling things out of the space from 6 to 8 a.m. before your staff comes back in. And now we can help you to manage your compliance with that using our technology, right? So we don't think of ourselves as a device company, Alex.
Yeah.
We are a platform that's designed to give our users 2 things: visibility and control. Visibility into what's happening and control of environmentals using our platform. And that final phase of our growth is going from being thought of as a device platform to being an ecosystem where we provide shared data using API integration with other platforms that control HVAC and control temp and humidity. So we syndicate the entire indoor wellness experience into one single access point. We call that Purinetic.
That's awesome, man. I love the names that you guys use. Like, it's very thoughtful in the branding that you guys put out there, like the Purinetic and the IQ and using smart purification. It's just, it makes sense, man. I mean, as a consumer, I don't hear a lot about that stuff out in the space, right? We don't hear about that stuff often. And so, I don't know, man. I think you guys are on the right track. You're making the right moves. You're having the right conversations, and it's awesome to see. And it's awesome to be a part of, man. Honestly, I've enjoyed the journey from getting to know you and seeing you out in LA back in 2019, whenever you were on the panel for the Interrupt conference.
Wow.
All the way to where we are now. I know it's been a long time. Yeah,
man. It's what a brotherhood in the making. But yeah, you guys have been a huge part of us getting to this next evolution curve. And I would just say that we see a world where pandemic readiness or environmental health and wellness and lifestyles of health and sustainability, those will not go away. We're always going to be looking for ways to use technology to make life more efficient, safe, and informative, right? And we think that if we can kind of ride along the rails of that, especially with 5G infrastructure, making it really easy to capture and send data between IoT devices and networks easily.
Yeah.
We see a clear path to becoming, a utility when we get into consumer, right? Where you have a light utility, you have electricity, gas, you have water, and then you have purification in the home and at the office and any environment you're in. It's just a natural part of your daily life experience. And we're way ahead of that, and we're excited to be first in cybernetic purification.
That's awesome, man. So I've got a couple more questions. One, and this is going to kind of take it back to the past a little bit. where you are now in your life, what is one piece of advice that you would give your 18-year-old self?
Relax.
That's a great piece of advice.
It's simple. For me, it's simple. It's relax. You know, the 18-year-old version of me is like, okay, there's this vision and this, I want to become this or do this or create this or be known for this. How do I do it? How do I do it fast? And how do I get there? And, you know, the 40-year-old version of me looks at that 18-year-old kid and says, relax, it's going to happen. You know, life has a way of pulling us in the direction we're supposed to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. So you've talked about your past. You've talked about Purinetic's past. You've talked about the present, where Purinetic wants to go. You've given some really solid advice for entrepreneurs that are out there that may be struggling or have an idea and will eventually be struggling. We're going to post your cell phone number. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. But, but you can find Ray on LinkedIn. I promise you that if anybody's out there that wants to reach out to Ray and talk to him, you know, I think that this has been absolutely incredible. I do this with every conversation I have, and I'm purposefully doing this within what I'm doing with Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. And that's where I'm asking you, Ray, what are some of the things that you're looking for? Listeners, get to this point, and if you've gotten to this point, thank you. I'm grateful. We're about 40 minutes in, so all the gratitude in the world if you've listened this far. But Ray, what types of introductions are you looking for? What types of conversations are you looking for? Who are you looking to get in front of with PURTEC? If anybody's out there and they're in these organizations and they're, you know, kind of walk me through what types of introductions are you guys looking for? What can help you push your needle to that next level?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, when we think about our desire to expand our message and connect with the needs of the market, the first thing that comes to mind is all of those really smart, forward-thinking property managers, the commercial real estate portfolio owners, the hotel operations companies. You know, there's a whole industry full of real estate professionals that are looking for ways to reopen safely and can't figure out how to go from, you know, where they are today with cleaning crews and wipes and sprays to 7- and 8-figure overhauls of HVAC systems. And we believe that someone listening to this is probably sitting in front of their P&L and it says they have, you know, they don't have 7 figures of HVAC overhaul for these crazy HEPA filters that may or may not work in their facility. We are very nimble. And so my appeal goes out to those real estate professionals that are really keen on bringing innovation into helping reopen their facilities without having to commit to these crazy capital expenditure budgets, that are really keen on getting data and analytics along with responsive technology to make their facilities safe. So I'd say that's first and foremost the profile of the folks that I'm typically across the table from. In the D1 area, I'm spending a lot of time, my sales team is spending a lot of time with facilities managers and equipment directors and managers, because they're on the front lines of keeping professionals and players safe in NCAA sports and in pro sports, right? But there's someone who's a hotel operator or hotel property manager who's got to figure out, how do I increase my RevPAR, keep the vacancy rate low? And RevPAR is just a term, revenue per available room. It's the driving metric for profitability in the hospitality business. You know, but someone's trying to figure out, how do I not have to keep my hotel room empty for 48 hours after a checkout, turn it over quicker, and not have to overhaul HVAC inside the room. And so we're a nice layer to help with that innovation leap without having to make a huge investment to do that. So I'd say that's what I focus most of my time on serving today, given our current tech stack.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, if anybody's out there, you heard it. Reach out to Ray. Reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with him.
I'm a cheap
date. What's that?
I'm a cheap date.
He's a cheap date. He is, man. Look, he didn't even order a beer. He's going to get some sort of he's going to get the seltzer water.
This would be a very different show if I had a beer.
We'll do that next time. Next trip out to Pittsburgh, we'll have that show.
I'll take you up for it, man.
Awesome, man. Well, Ray, listen, this has been absolutely fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to share? Is there anything else that we missed before we wrap up tonight?
If you guys have software development needs, if this is an advertisement, TrueFit is an amazing shop. They're not cheap dates either. but But yeah, I would just plug you guys, and that us getting here has been an incredible journey, and you guys do terrific work. And then I'd say for the entrepreneurs that are out there that have crazy ideas where you think it might work or you can change the world in some unique way. It's going to sound a little bit corny, a little bit colloquial, a little bit overdone, but pursue it, push it. I mean, don't let resources be the thing that keeps you from launching the thing that you know will help people every day, right? Yeah. And resources will find you.
Yeah, and you can speak into that, man, because you lived it, right?
100.
You lived it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Ray, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for we got deep, which is really what I wanted to do with this thing. I want people to hear about things that they wouldn't normally hear about from the entrepreneurs or from the movers and shakers that are doing cool things in IoT. PURTEC is definitely in that space of doing something cool, something world changing, something global in the IoT space. So eternally grateful for you, man. Thank you so much for participating, spending some late hours at the office, for getting that Yeti microphone for this webcast. It's been great, brother.
I had a great time, man. It's always a pleasure. And I'm going to get back to work.
All right, buddy. You do that. We'll see you later. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Talk tomorrow, man. Cheers.
Cheers. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed episode 2 of Drinks at the Forefront of IoT with Ray Edwards, CEO of PURTEC. Man, what an amazing conversation. As always, insanely grateful to our sponsors for this pilot season of Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. Aaron, JetStore, Simwell, TrueFit. I would not be able to do this without these companies. Listen, give a look at these organizations. If you're trying to hire and your organization is growing, please reach out to Aaron. They've got an incredible platform. If you're looking for storage solutions, all these IoT devices, they take storage. Reach out to my buddy Gene at JetStore. If you're looking for, and you're doing AI and ML, and you're looking for some sort of data simulation, reach out to John over at Simwell. And then if you're in need of some sort of software product development strategy, reach out to us over at TrueFit to help you out. Again, thank you to the sponsors for putting up with me and what I've got going on with this show. And then stay tuned, man. Next week, we have I'll be having a conversation with Jimmy Buffy. Jimmy's got some incredible past. Jimmy actually used to work for the Dodgers as a senior analyst, doing some really amazing things, and has taken what he's done with the Dodgers and his past experiences and created a company, Reboot Motion. And I cannot wait to have the conversation with Jimmy. It's going to be a blast. Thank you so much for following along. If you have not yet followed us on social media, do it, please. We're pushing most of what we do out to LinkedIn. It's where you're going to find a majority of it. Videos are getting hosted on YouTube. We've got a Twitter, we've got an Instagram, which we'll be putting stuff up. We'll eventually be putting the audio for what we're doing here with these webcasts into podcast form and pushing those out to iTunes and Spotify. So if you've made it this far in the show, thank you so much. And we will see you next time on episode 3 with Reboot Motion, Jimmy Buffy on Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. Have a great week.